Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL's Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman behind the scenes producing. I'm Dave Holcomb, back from Dallas. I don't know if you saw any, or I think I only did one Instagram post, Tom, but
did you?
Did you see my post? I was at the Cowboys-Lions controversy last week.
Oh, were you?
I was, yes.
God, you got a first-hand seat to all of that.
Yeah, and Shannon and I were both like, I think that's going to be controversial. That I didn't get the referee expert John Perry's opinion in live time. I didn't get the benefit of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I think they were announcing the game. But even still, I was like, I'm pretty sure that might be wrong.
Yes.
But it was fun. AT&T Stadium lived up to the hype. You know, one of the most talked about stadiums, I guess, around the country, and at least in NFL circles. And it was really nice. Nice stadium, really loud.
I've always looked at it as a great stadium where you could sit back and watch the game on the big screen TV.
I caught myself at the beginning of the game. I had no problem. I was watching the game, and then I'd look up for the replay. But I think looking up for the replay got me in, and then you might go do something, turn to take a bite to eat or drink, whatever, and then you turn back, and I just naturally went back to the screen. And I was like, wait, no, I have to watch the game.
You can watch the game
here.
right there.
But yeah, it was a huge screen, and I was expecting a huge screen, and I think Atlanta's screen is pretty big and nice. AT&T, sorry, Falcons fans, AT&T Stadium screen is better than Falcons. Best screen I've ever seen. It was incredible. It's like the length of the football field. So
I know. That's why I say you could pay, however much a Cowboys ticket costs, and you could pay to go to the stadium and watch the big screen TV.
And it kind of made punts less impressive. I don't know. Maybe it was also because we were so high. We were in the upper deck.
Yeah.
But I was expecting the punt to come close to the screen, and it really didn't. It was like that's like a 50-yard punt. It felt like it was nothing. But I had maybe just the tiny football compared to the giant TV screen.
Yeah.
Threw off my perspective a little. I don't know. But it was a really fun experience. It was a fun New Year's. We caught a Dallas Stars game too, so crossed that venue off the list. But played the Blackhawks. Got to see Connor Bedard.
Yeah. Yeah, he's something else. He's having a hell of a rookie year.
Yeah.
So hopefully he leads the Blackhawks into their next golden age. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Not such a golden game for the Blackhawks. The Stars won 8-1.
Well, it hasn't been. They don't really have the goaltender for it.
Yeah.
They don't have the defenseman for it yet. They still got a lot of building to do.
Sure.
So,
coming out of the era they were in, salary cap issues crop up, and age happens, and I think Mary Hossa retiring kind of early hurt them a lot. So
Jonathan Taves kind of fell off in skill a little bit later.
He did.
Nobody knew if he was sick or something was going on with him, but he fell off. Then they traded Patrick Kane, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So,
is Duncan? I'm sorry, I don't know. Is Duncan Keith still on the team? Is he still playing?
No.
Has he been retired a while?
He's retired. Yeah. So, it's you just get to that point where guys either get old, lose some skill, or you trade to try and get some picks, try and build up that next rally, but it takes time. I mean, with the Penguins, I mean, it takes time to get back to the top. After you've had a golden age, like the Penguins did with Mario Lemieux, you don't just climb that ladder. You don't stay at the top of that ladder very long.
And the NHL is not entirely the same, but at least for the Blackhawks and the Penguins, examples of you need that superstar player or multiple superstar players, to be honest, kind of like you need the quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that player you get by being really bad, quite honestly. You get them being Not even top
the
5.
Blackhawks got Connor Bedard.
Right. Yeah. And I was saying you can't even really be in the top 5 to get a Connor Bedard or Sidney Crosby. You got to get him at number 1.
Yeah.
And you can't trade up for that player because no one's given up anything.
No one's giving it up.
You got to win you have to win the lottery, of course, because the NHL has the lottery system.
Right.
But anyway, did you do anything for New Year's?
No, not really. Just kind of took it easy. Went over to a friend's house. We had dinner and, watched some football and, really didn't do much of anything other than that. It wasn't very, my partying days are kind of in the past. When I used to close down the bars on Division Street,
Well, I wouldn't have traded anything for our trip to Dallas. It was really a lot of fun, but there's a lot to be said for just hanging out at home and watching the ball drop. Maybe I like listening to Christmas music still after Christmas. Put that on, watch people party on TV is kind of fun to do as well if you're not out somewhere at a sporting event. Those are the 2 things I like to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I used to go out on Christmas Eve every year. So, as I say, I haven't done that in quite a while. So, it's just get to a point where you don't feel like you need to anymore.
Chris, did you do anything for New Year's?
No, wife and I, we just went out and, went to a bar here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, finished, I guess we caught the latter half of the Packers Vikings game, which I guess I was surprised about because everybody here was like nervous as hell about, how the Packers would fare against the Vikings. And it seemed to be kind of a sweep until the end. Then brought in the new year. We got a free beer champagne toast. So handed out beers and for here Milwaukee fashion. And just kind of after that, hung out for a bit and went home. So nothing, we are and I personally am, I don't mind going out for New Year's, but I'm more of a low key kind of person. I like to enjoy time, just reflecting on the new year, taking that moment for the self and family and, going there. Right. Plus, a lot of crazy stuff always happens on New Year's. So I always hear about it and see it the next day. And I'm always like, yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there. Or I'm glad I wasn't around there. So, but great time. And I can't believe it's 24. Let me tell you, I cannot believe it.
Yeah.
I know.
Goes that fast.
It seems like when we go out, it's either the place we're at is empty or we've gotten into a couple places where it's just wall-to-wall people. It's like, can't we have like not relax, but like a good atmosphere, but not crazy?
Yeah. Listen, come to Milwaukee. I was shocked. I mean, we had that at where we went.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, we had. I mean, it was a full bar, but I didn't feel like everybody was on top of each other. I mean, we walked in, we were able to get seating for ourselves and some friends that we met up with. Hell, I got parking at the bar. They had off-street parking. I got lucky, got the last space in the lot. So, nothing like what Tom had to deal with in Chicago. I'm sure if he wanted to go out and do anything.
Oh, so. We took public transportation. I used to go out with my brother. We took public transportation. You go to a bar and it would be fairly empty for a while. And, as the night went on, you would get more shoulder to shoulder. There was one New Year's where we had a couple, 3 people, I forget where they were from. And they were visiting Chicago, and they ended up at our table just because they were pressed into our table.
Oh my gosh!
We had a good time with them, and took some pictures. And my brother and I said later, "Yeah, they're going to look at those pictures 5 years from now and say, who the hell were those guys?"
Yeah. I'm sure so. But I'm glad to hear y'all had a good New Year's, and I'm looking forward to all 2024 is going to bring.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year to everybody out there. And one other note about the Cowboys-Lions game, Tom. I've gone to 2 Lions games now.
Yeah.
Whatever happened Saturday, I still don't really know how to describe it. And in 2015, week 3, Monday Night Football, Seahawks-Lions. Remember this one? Where I believe it was either Bobby Wagner or KJ Wright batted the ball out of the back of the end zone with a forced fumble inside of 2 minutes. and it should have been called an illegal batting of the ball and given the Lions back possession.
Yeah.
Instead, the refs said it went out of bounds in the end zone.
Right.
Seattle ball. They won by 3. So I've been to 2 Lions games, two
controversial calls.
5 very, very controversial calls.
Yeah.
And Lions fans are very sensitive about the bad calls against them. So
they're very sensitive to right. So
I'm not going any more Lions games, I guess. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I know how that is. Yep.
Won't be at any Lions playoff games this year. I promise.
Lions fans will love you for that.
Yeah.
They will.
But let's get into our NFL talk today. We want to discuss Arthur Smith's job security, I guess you can put it.
Yeah,
and,
we've already gotten a couple of comments about that.
Yeah, I love it. Keep it coming. Fred Butts says, I think Arthur Smith is gone. Larry Orange also thinks Smith and Terry Fontenot are going to be fired on what's been known as Black Monday now.
Black Monday.
Day after the season. Monday will be the day everybody gets fired, except, of course, Frank Reich in Carolina and Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas already been fired, but everybody else is going to be fired on Monday.
Yeah, pretty much. A couple of coaches I think may have saved their jobs over the last few weeks. I could say Arthur Smith. I don't think so, especially after last week's game. And, a little bit of mixed feelings about last week's game because I am predominantly a Bears fan. So
Sure.
I enjoyed watching. But one of the things that struck me as I was watching the game, the Falcons did not do anything on offense that the Bears were not prepared for. The Bears were not fooled at any point during the game at anything the Falcons did on offense, which is very telling against a coach like Arthur Smith, who's supposed to be your offensive, guru.
Right.
And isn't that right, Zozo? Yeah. She says, yep. Yep. So it's something. And, I know a lot of Atlanta fans were saying, hey, we're playing a losing team. We should beat these guys. The Bears have been playing a lot better defense under Matt Eberflus since he's taken over the defensive coaching responsibilities. As a matter of fact, I think Eberflus may have saved his job over the last few weeks. Taking over
I agree with you. The Bears have played a lot better. I mean, aren't they technically still alive for a playoff spot?
No, they're done.
Okay.
They're done. They could knock the Green Bay Packers out of a playoff spot.
Almost
which
making
the Bears fans is always a positive.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you can beat the Packers, that's a good thing. It's like the Falcons and the Saints.
Right.
Anytime you beat the Saints, that's a good thing. We may not be in the playoffs, but if we can, do our job against the Saints, it's a successful finish. Not a successful season, but a successful finish.
Right. It's one of the best things the NFL has done in recent years. I had mixed feelings about this expanded playoff, expanded regular season, to be honest. 17 games. I know it's only one extra week, but it feels just so much longer. But
I think it takes a toll on the players.
Yeah.
It really does. We've seen more injuries. And I think it's because of this added game in the season. Football's a tough sport. It's tough to recover from week to week. And adding an extra game.
Right.
I've noticed on injury reports during the week, a lot of players will be given rest. A lot of veterans will get a day of rest during the week off of practice, just because to keep themselves
fresh,
rested, keep themselves going as the season goes on. So I know NFL teams are trying to adjust to that, but still the games are tough.
Yeah, and I can't really obviously speak to the physical part of the game from a firsthand basis, but I think just mentally, as someone who covers the sport, how grueling and long the season is from a mental standpoint, and just the ups and downs that really every team goes through, unless you're Carolina or Baltimore, I guess. But even Baltimore, like at the beginning of the season, probably had some downs.
Yes, they
It's
did.
just, I mean, every week we overreact and just like thinking about our hot takes from a month ago and we're thinking we're at the end of the season. They've completely changed now in just 4 or 5 weeks when, that was, I know it's only one extra week, but back in the 16 game season, we were a little bit closer to the end is kind of how I feel about it. But anyway, I think moving to this was done a while ago now, but moving to the division only matchups in week 18, the season finale, was a terrific move. Terrific.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great.
Every game is meaningful because you're playing a team that you do not like.
Right.
And, that's going to come into play for a lot of teams. Falcons and my team, the Steelers, were rooting for teams to lose, and those other teams are rivals of those teams we need to lose, and they would love to spoil their season. So we're big Carolina Panthers fans this weekend, hoping that the Falcons win and knock out, and then the Panthers knock out the Buccaneers.
Right, exactly. That's the best case scenario, and that it maintains interest in the last week of the season when a lot of teams may not have had that much interest if you were playing somebody out of division, out of conference.
Right.
And because now it's almost always a rivalry game. You want to beat that team in your division. And some teams are going to, I think the teams that are out of the playoffs are still going to be playing for something. Baltimore is going to be resting a lot of starters. Frisco, I think, is going to rest some guys. You're going to see a lot of teams resting players if they can't improve their draft position. But you're going to see a lot of bottom feeders still out there trying to win. I mean, Tabor, head coach of the Carolina, said, we're playing. He told his players, we're playing for pride and we're playing for tape. Put some film down that's going to make a case for you for next year. And a lot of players look at it that way too. Right. I have to save my job for next year.
Right. Yeah. And I think even the 49ers and the Ravens, you brought them up as resting players. I still think they want to win their games with their backups. So I don't think the Steelers can approach this lightly today and think that, we're playing backups, we're going to roll into Baltimore to an easy win. No, I think the Ravens would love to end Pittsburgh's season, and I think the 49ers and Rams, same situation there. I guess the Rams clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah, the Rams are in. The Steelers need that win to have a chance.
They actually still have a chance if they lose, but it's much more complicated. So they really need to win, and they only need one other thing to happen if they win. They need 3 things to happen if they lose.
Right. So, it's
including they would need, if the Steelers lose, they would need the Broncos to win as one of the 3 things to make the playoffs.
Wow.
Which is interesting because the Broncos are out of it.
Yes.
And so they don't have anything to play for. They're playing against a team that doesn't have anything to play for either. So that's a dangerous thing to hope for. But I find the tie-breaking scenarios in the NFL interesting because they would have the tiebreaker if Denver's involved. They don't have the tiebreaker if Denver's not involved. If the Steelers lose.
And I think the NFL loves that too. The tie-breaking system. I really do. I think the NFL thrives on this.
Yeah, well, and I believe, I don't know this for 100%, but I think if I have this right, if Denver had beaten New England on Christmas Eve, the Steelers would be in playoff position right now, which is crazy to think about.
It's crazy to think about, because
I guess if Denver had won that game, they would still have a chance to make the playoffs today too, so it would matter for them. But ultimately, it's going to end up being kind of a meaningless game when we look back at the overall 2023 schedule. But if it's possible that if that outcome had gone the other way, the Steelers are in the playoffs instead of the Colts.
Right.
Yeah. Or the Jaguars, something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a strange situation. It's weird how these year-end scenarios always end up being very complicated. Yeah, the Jaguars still might not win their division. So
they could be out entirely. It's pretty crazy that, I mean, they looked pretty good for a big portion of the season. I think they've been in first place all year and may not even lock down a wild card spot if they lose. So a lot on the line here at week 18. But I think the question that Falcons fans want us to pursue today, Tom, is something on the line for Arthur Smith. And I have a hard time believing that Blank will fire Smith if they win and Carolina wins and they win the NFC South. Probably will fall back on, we won the division, we improved by a game in the standings, we're hosting a playoff game. But ultimately, I've read articles this week that the decision should already be in, and a lot of our commenters have already made their decisions that Arthur Smith should be gone. So how do you feel about, I guess, really the whole situation? But my original question is something on the line for Smith tomorrow. Is he coaching for his job?
I don't think he's coaching for his job tomorrow. I tend to think the decision's in. For one thing, I don't think Arthur Blank should be making this decision.
You think the general manager should be?
Yeah, general manager should be making this decision. This should be Fontenot's decision.
Yeah.
And normally a general manager gets two coaches. So I don't think Fontenot's going anywhere.
I don't think Fontenot's going anywhere.
But
I actually think Fontenot, I disagree with his strategy in team building. But
so do I.
I don't.
Very much so.
But I don't think he's the problem, though. It's very obvious when you look at the offensive stats, when you watch all of the games, Arthur Smith is not getting the most out of the players he's been given.
No.
And Fontenot, despite not drafting edge rushers and defensive players like we would like him to do at the beginning of drafts, their defense improved a lot this year.
Yeah, well, he signed some outstanding free agents. I mean,
exactly. I'm crediting Fontenot with that, with finding those diamond in the rough players when he wasn't going to be getting them at the beginning of the draft. He found guys to help the defense in free agency. Short term, then we'll see how they do going forward. But it was at least fixed enough by Fontenot in 2023 where this should be a playoff team.
Yeah, I believe it should. I've believed that they were capable of being a playoff team all season, even with Ritter as the quarterback. One of the problems is, as I say, as an offensive genius or offensive guru or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Head coach with a background in offense.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. This team has not scored. They haven't put points on the board. I looked at it last week, and they were averaging 17 points a game under Ritter at quarterback. Another, 27 points a game with Heineke, but the results weren't any better. So it's not like Heineke was setting the world on fire as far as the way he was running the offense. He did get a few more points. He did do better down in the red zone than Ritter did, but Ritter moves the team. He's still got red zone issues. But I think with Arthur Smith, one of the problems is the arrogance. And you play arrogant to the press, to the media, to the people who are communicating with the fans, you better win football games. I mean, Bill Belichick could get away with it for a long time, because he won football games. He won Super Bowls. Yeah. So he can brush off the media every now and then. Smith can't do that. He hasn't won. And he acts like he's, a great NFL mind. Well, you got to win first before you can do that, because it's going to reflect when the fans start making their thoughts known. What you tell the media, what the fans see you telling the media, they're your messenger. They're the fans' messenger. And you cannot be arrogant and expect to get away with it. And I think that's one of his problems is he hasn't taken enough responsibility for what's happened this year. He hasn't been more frank with the public about what's happened this year. Talking about Ritter, maybe. Well, I don't think he had any other choice but to play Ritter because we know what Heineke is as quarterback. At least Ritter had a ceiling coming into this season. But, and as I say, the Bears, for all the offensive innovation that we credit Arthur Smith with, the Bears knew everything he was going to do last week. He didn't fool anybody. He almost got away with a couple of things. D. Alford running that field goal attempt back just was crazy. But, and that almost, had the Falcons in the game at the half.
Right. Yeah.
But other than that, the Bears, the defense dominated, and Smith did not do anything that was surprising. So I don't think he's got a very good case to make right now to continue as head coach.
So you said the decision is in. You think he's getting fired?
I think he's getting fired. Yes.
Okay.
Because I think Blank expected more out of the team this season.
Yeah.
Maybe not a Super Bowl, but I think they expected a playoff team. And again, the fact that one of Smith's problems, I think, is he tries to take on everything on the offense. Do you see Dave Ragone on the sidelines or Dave Ragone in the press box? Does anybody pan to Dave Ragone during the game and say Dave Ragone is, talking on the headset to Arthur Smith and making his suggestions? And, Dave Ragone is a glorified quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much he works with the quarterbacks either, because I think Desmond Ritter needs a dedicated quarterback coach. I think that's what the Falcons have needed all season, is a dedicated quarterback coach. But they haven't had one. And it's hard for Desmond Ritter to go to his coaches, go to Ragone, who I would assume is supposed to be working on the game plan, and Smith, who's working on the game plan, and saying, can you help me watch film? I don't see that happening. I don't know for a fact if that's happening, but I don't think it is happening because of the results they got and the amount of development that Ritter has shown this season. So I think that's been a big problem, the way he's brought along this offense.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. Now the players say, you always get these reports in the press, in the media saying, well, the players are still behind Arthur Smith 100%. But you always hear that for coaches who aren't winning. Well, the players like him, but he's not winning. And you made all these improvements to the team, and you still have the possibility of finishing with a 7-10 record, which they did a year ago.
Right. And the year before that.
Yeah. So, you've really made a lot of moves to infuse some talent into this team. And it doesn't seem to have done much. Ryan Nielsen, I think everybody loves what Ryan Nielsen's done with his defense. But you haven't seen anything out of Arthur Smith that says next year is going to be any better than what we've seen this year.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. When you do, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. It's some free money.
Yep.
It is the end of the season, but it's never too late to get started. You can get started today with the Saturday games. Steelers, Ravens, Colts, Texans should be some two great matchups with implications on the AFC playoff picture. And then all the games, rest of the games tomorrow. Should be really fun day in Prize Picks. And if you're new to the app, use our code ASU to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, you still got NBA and NHL that you can do prop picks on. So there's choices all through the year about, ways you can play and ways you can get involved in Prize Picks. So don't let the fact that the NFL season is winding down discourage you from continuing to consider, signing up and use the promo code ASU.
You were talking about Arthur Smith's arrogance, and Jay Black really agrees with you that his arrogance is a complete turnoff. Ghost Peppers also agrees with you. He posted that when you were talking about Arthur Smith being arrogant with the media. I find his arrogance with the play calling he does, the stubbornness. Maybe I'll use that word instead. The stubbornness with his play calling.
That's a good word.
A lot more annoying, although the arrogance with the media isn't good either. And I know we've brought this up before, but I want to bring it up again as we take kind of an aerial view of the season this week and probably in the next couple of weeks. Kyle Pitts had 87 targets or has 87 targets going into the season finale. Jonnu Smith has 67. I don't think anybody going into the season thought there would be only a 20 target difference between those two players. And Pitts is second on the team. He's second only to Drake London. And he's second in receiving yards. He's tied for first in touchdowns. So, he's at the top of or close to the top in all the receiving categories, but he should be doing better. He should be doing.
Yes, he should.
He should be producing more. And you want to blame that on the quarterback? Fine. Ritter has obviously not been very good at throwing the ball downfield to his playmakers, but part of that falls on Arthur Smith and his development of Desmond Ritter, but also just manufacturing plays where you can get the ball in Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson's hands. Hasn't been done enough by Arthur Smith. Instead, he wants to try and beat people with guys like Jonnu Smith and prove to the media, prove to fans, prove to the other team, whatever, that he can win with Jonnu Smith making big plays. And great, Jonnu Smith had that long catch against the Carolina Panthers a few weeks ago. Well, you didn't beat the Carolina Panthers. So, big whoop-de-doo, and that's going to keep you. If you don't make the playoffs, that's the game that you point to if you're Falcons fans and say, that's where we didn't make the playoffs.
Right. Exactly. He doesn't scheme guys open. You can scheme guys open, but he doesn't do it much. Another problem I have with him, again, is his use of Bijan Robinson. You brought him in to be a playmaker, but you don't use him like a playmaker. I talked about this with Mad Mike last week, where Robinson's third on the team in targets. And I know the Falcons plan on using him in the passing game. However, you're getting the ball to him, and he's close to stationary. He's not really moving. I've wanted to see them get Robinson the ball, maybe, pitches or quick throws to the flat, quick throws, slants, where he's taken on a linebacker one-on-one, because he's going to make him miss. He makes first tacklers miss constantly. And then he can get you some yards. Get him the ball where he's already going full speed in space. And that's another failure, I think, that I can trace back to Arthur Smith, is the way he's used Robinson in the passing game. He's used Robinson as a check down, where Robinson goes out, turns, and, waves a hand and says, okay, if you need me, I'm here.
Right.
But you got to get him the ball when he's actually moving. And they haven't done enough of that. But Jonnu Smith, a thing with him is he was, a favorite of Arthur Smith in Tennessee. And Michael Pruitt was too. And Jonnu Smith, for all his faults, was an outstanding first down tight end. for the number of targets he got in Tennessee, a lot of those were for first downs. A lot of those were for touchdowns. And I expected him to be more of a specialized tight end this year. But he's really taken on a lot of this offense that I don't think he's skilled enough, or other teams feel he's dangerous enough to do something about.
Right.
And
yeah. I mean, you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Bijan Robinson. How about Cordero Patterson, the forgotten Joker?
Oh, Patterson, yes.
And we made such a big deal that he was going to do all of it. He was going to do this, he was going to do that, because he wasn't going to have a position. And that was all just a farce. It was just completely. He has 12 targets this season, 9 catches, 45 rushing attempts, no touch, 1 receiving touchdown, no rushing touchdowns. Yeah. You talk about the Falcons and whether or not the locker room is still behind Arthur Smith. Cordell Patterson liked a tweet from Rise Up Reader this week on X. Can't call it Twitter anymore, Tom. On X, where
I can call it whatever I want.
Twitter.com. It's still the URL.
Yeah.
Where Rise Up Reader tweeted, "It's crazy how little we saw Cordell Patterson this year. Arthur Smith didn't use him creatively at all and listed him as Joker on the depth chart. The joke was on all of us." Cordell Patterson liked that tweet.
Yes, he did.
And, Myles Garrett, not the Myles Garrett that plays for the Browns, Myles Garrett from Atlanta. Let me double check which organization he's with. He's Fox 5 Atlanta. And he tweeted about how Cordell Patterson liked this tweet, and Patterson did not deny it. He said, "Should I be happy with the way my season went?" His exact tweet was, "Should I be happy?" So, Patterson is frustrated. I would imagine other people in that locker room are frustrated based on all the things that we're talking about, not getting Patterson the ball, not getting Bijan Robinson the ball in a position where he can make bigger plays, and not, scheming more for Kyle Pitts and Drake London as opposed to somebody like Jonnu Smith.
Cross Kyle Pitts and Drake London in the pass pattern, make the defensive back make a decision. Do something that's a little bit different. But yeah, Cordero Patterson's really upset. He is not happy with this season at all. He's one of the guys who is not happy with Arthur Smith and would love to see Arthur Smith go somewhere. Of course, Cordero Patterson, I think, can go somewhere after this season too.
Right.
I know the Bears would love to have him back.
Yeah.
We'll take him in a second. But yeah, I thought Patterson would be used more in the pass game this year.
I thought so too. Yeah.
And just has been a waste because you already got your top 2 backs. And I think he's using Algier too much. I still think Algier is more of your third down and short back, more of your goal line back. A guy who just busts through the line and is tough to bring down. But Patterson busts through the line, makes the first guy miss, and gets you some, fantastic yards. Can break big plays. I know Algier did that last week. Where, what was it, 75 yards? I was surprised he could run that far that fast. The Bears couldn't catch him. But that's not Algier's game. That's not what he does. I think he's only broken a couple of tackles in his first 2 seasons in the league. Are broken things into the second level. And I figured, Robinson would be more of your first couple of downs, maybe your third down and long, or third down and medium. But Algier's been getting the same, getting important carries, first down, second down carries, getting a whole series when Robinson's standing on the bench as, a top 10 pick, as a guy who's supposed to be your playmaker.
Yeah, I want to make a point about that with support with some of these comments we've got coming in now. Keep the comments rolling, guys. Thanks.
Yes.
The Falcons didn't find, this is from Bowling Ball 99 LB, the Falcons didn't find their identity for success, which seemed to be running the ball, but then Smith would pass the ball more the next week, which wasn't our path to victory. We've got another one. Downtown says, guys, come on, Atlanta did not need to draft Bijan. What idiots. And, I wouldn't, again, it's not the way I would build a team, drafting a running back, drafting wide receivers every year, pass catchers in the top 10. But if you do that, you want to improve in that area. Obviously, you have to improve in that area. Well, last year, the Falcons were third in rushing with 4.9. They're third overall in rushing yards, and they averaged 4.9 yards per carry. This season, still a top 10 run offense, but they're eighth, and they've fallen to 4.2 yards per carry. That can't happen when you draft a running back in the top 10.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Bears drafted Robinson's backup, Roshan Johnson, I think in the third or fourth round. I think he's had as much success as Bijan Robinson has had, as far as yards per carry. So you're not really giving this guy a chance to be everything that he was projected to be coming out of the draft. So why do you bother drafting? You've drafted playmakers now 3 straight years, Pitts, London, and Robinson to the, and ignored other areas where you really needed help.
Right. And again, Fontenot did a great job of shoring up those other needs in free agency, short term, I think. And he did enough to help the defense, to help the other areas where if you take off on offense with all these playmakers and in a weak division, you can win the NFC South and then host a playoff. Right. That really should have happened this year. Brian Freeman said his previous comment was, what a waste of a season. Then he makes a great point about here. We have an offensive-minded head coach and a putrid offense. This cannot continue. And that really, I think, is the reason why I would agree with you, Tom, that I think Smith should be fired. But I think the jury's still out. I think he is coaching for his job tomorrow. I think. Well, I think all of the things that we're talking about are true, whether or not the Falcons make the playoffs, right? But if the Falcons make the playoffs for the first time since 2017, they win the division, they host a playoff game, assuming they lose to the Dallas Cowboys in that playoff game if they're in it, is Arthur Smith going to fire him the next day? I mean, is Arthur Blank going to fire Smith the next day after a playoff?
No, but he's not in the playoffs. Not going to be.
Well, I'm saying, but your point was the decision's already been made, but they could still make the playoffs.
No,
if they make the playoffs.
I don't think they can.
If Carolina wins and they win, they're in.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I didn't think there was a scenario for the Falcons.
They can win the NFC South.
Oh, okay. Brian Friedman says you're right. So, okay. But then he is coaching for his job.
Okay.
He is coaching for his job.
I mean, I think a lot of people agreed with your original point, though, that regardless of what happens, he should be fired. I think he deserves to be fired based on what's happened this season. We make these decisions of whether to fire a coach, bring back a quarterback, who remains a starter, this and that, based on results. But a lot of it, of course, has to depend on how we get to those results.
Yes.
And if the Falcons finish 8-9 with a win tomorrow and Buccaneers lose, they win the division, I still don't feel like Smith deserves to come back for a fourth season. But I don't see Arthur Blank firing him if they make the playoffs. I guess that's my point.
No, if they make the playoffs, no. There's no way. He's not fired. I don't think that's going to happen. I would agree with you.
Okay.
But any other scenario, that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, going back to this offensive guru, I just looked it up. Falcons are 24th in red zone attempts this year. They've gotten into the red zone fewer times than any team, almost any team in the league. And you can say that there's a lot of talent on this offense. They should be in the red zone a lot more. Been in red zone 44 times. They've only scored 21 touchdowns. They got one of the worst red zone percentages in the league. You can't have that when you're supposed to be an offensive genius. 27th in red zone percentage.
Right.
That's where you make your bread and butter. Once you get the ball inside the 20, you got to take advantage of that. That's where you got to score your touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he's not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can go up and down the stat sheet, individual stats for players, team stats on offense, situational stats in the red zone, turnovers. It just, all of it screams of a bad offense. And you can say it's the quarterback. It definitely is. But Smith is responsible for that quarterback. And he should, if he's such a genius, be able to come up with ways to maximize all of his talent outside of quarterback,
right,
and still be able to win some of these games that they lost.
Exactly. You coach to your quarterback strengths. And I don't think he's done enough of that. And I know Ritter has a lot to be desired. Okay. I've come around on that point. Ritter has not developed the way I thought he should develop this year.
Yeah.
But he does leave a lot to be desired. You got to bring in competition for him next year. He's still on a rookie deal, so he can at least be a backup. But you got to bring in some competition for him next year. However, I don't think Arthur Smith has done him any favors.
Right.
Again, because he doesn't have a coach to go over things. And just the way he doesn't coach to Ritter's strengths, which is short to intermediate passes where Ritter can really fire the ball. When Ritter has to put touch on the ball, he's got problems. When he can rear back and fire bullets, he's very accurate. And that's one of the issues. But Smith doesn't play to that enough. And I just looking here, the Falcons are 7th in field goals attempted, which is ridiculous. You can't take that many field goals. You can't make that many field goals attempts. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers are 29th. Lions are 32nd. Buccaneers are 25th. Dolphins are 24th.
The Lions just go for it on fourth down.
They go for it on fourth down, yes. But they also score more touchdowns.
Right, yeah.
The 49ers, they score more touchdowns. Miami is down there in field goals attempted. They score more touchdowns.
Right.
They take advantage of that red zone, possibilities. Yeah, you just can't keep doing that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I want to get to a couple more comments. John M. Brings up a good point. I said the Dallas Cowboys. I had the Cowboys on my mind coming to Atlanta. If Atlanta has the home playoff game, if they win the South. Actually, now it's because of that Lions-Cowboys game and the Eagles losing. It's going to be the Eagles probably coming to whoever wins the NFC South. Looks like it probably is going to be the Buccaneers, but could still be the Falcons or Saints. And Brian says, this is a great stat. 30 points scored in four times in 3 seasons under Arthur Smith. The Lions have done that 5 times since week 10. So that's that.
It is. It's right awful.
There.
Word for it, Brian.
And that was a stat that just has plagued the Steelers too. Just no 30-point offensive games. Right. They had one last year and a loss, and had none until who would have thought Mason Rudolph started playing. So
who would have thought?
I know, incredible.
I didn't expect that.
Back-to-back games now, they've done it with Mason Rudolph. But we have a hi message from Juicy Banana. Thank you for joining us this afternoon or morning if you're in Central Time Zone or further west in the country. We got to get to your picks, Tom, but I want to mention one other thing about the potential coaching change for the Falcons. NFL insider Josina Anderson tweeted on the 4th, Thursday, that teams within the NFC South have potential interest in Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. And she said that the Chargers are also a team to keep an eye on. And she talked about, it was a very long tweet, but she basically said that a divorce is likely coming between the Patriots and Belichick, that they're just kind of looking at it as a fresh start. And she didn't mention which teams, but there's only 4 teams in the NFC South, and she mentioned teams. So at least 2 of them are interested. You think the Falcons could be one of them?
I think anything's possible. For one thing, the divorce between New England and Belichick has to happen.
Right.
I think Kraft is going to have some meetings with Belichick before that takes place. Belichick won't be gone on Monday. But if he is gone, if he decides he doesn't want to make some of the changes in New England that Kraft wants to see, and Belichick has not done well in the drafting the last few years, and I don't think Belichick should be in charge of personnel. I think that's one of the things he and Kraft are going to discuss. And he traded up for a place kicker that's cost him games. So,
right. Yeah.
But I forget the guy's name right now. But
and of course, that's, I guess, the big question, bringing him into Atlanta. You have Terry Fontenot. We both think Terry Fontenot is safe. So if you're interested in Bill Belichick, I mean, do you have to fire Fontenot to bring in Belichick? Is that something that the Falcons should even consider? Would Bill Belichick work with Terry Fontenot?
Well, and that's a consideration, because you got to figure if Belichick isn't going to be in charge of personnel, he's going to want somebody in place who he can at least influence a little bit and give suggestions to. Now, would Fontenot, I'm not saying influence Fontenot, but give suggestions to Fontenot that Fontenot would seriously consider.
Work together.
Right. You would have to be, you couldn't be as dominant in the chain of command, let's say, if you have Belichick, then you have Arthur Smith, because I don't think Arthur Smith has any kind of influence. And well, I wouldn't say that, because I think probably because of Arthur Smith, that's why the Falcons
have drafted
offense heavy the last few years.
Right.
But that's all it comes down to. I think Belichick would want some say. He would want to vote instead of, giving suggestions. And would Fontenot stand for that? So I think it's possible it could happen. He's not going to have all the power in Atlanta that he might want. But you got to look at his track record. I mean, yeah, I know he's had rough years the last couple of years, but he's still one of the 10 greatest coaches of all time.
A lot of people would say, top 5, top 3.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Anderson mentioned in her tweet is Belichick wants to become the winningest head coach of all time.
Yeah.
And forget off the top of my head how many, I can look it up real quick, how many wins he needs. Of course, I know you'll support me in this. I don't understand why all of a sudden we're including postseason records wins with Belichick and counting that towards his overall winning percentage and winning stats. But
regular season only.
Well, it's always with Belichick. It's always they've included she included his postseason stuff.
I don't care about his postseason stuff.
ESPN has included it too. They had that last year. It was like he passed George Halas. He still hasn't passed George Halas technically.
He hasn't passed George Halas in wins.
No, he hasn't. But he trails Don Shula and George Halas in regular season wins. He needs 27 more wins to be number 1 on that list. If you're including the postseason, he needs 15 more. I don't know which list Belichick is going for. He probably is going for both. If I was him, I want to be number 1.
I would say probably both.
Yeah, so he needs 27 more wins. He turns 72 in April. So he's kind of more of a short-term solution, being 72 years old, but he does want to win. He wants to record basically 3 10-win seasons. This is kind of how I would look at it, and coach till he's 75, 76.
Yeah, well, Pete Carroll's still going strong. So I don't know if that's out of the realm of possibility.
They're about the same age.
Yeah. So it's, and, I don't know if age makes as much of a difference. I know people say, well, they're out of touch with the modern NFL. And I don't think the modern NFL is all that everybody makes it out to be either. Yeah, you've had some changes as far as formations and some of the things you can do on offense, but still, you're in the game. You're watching it every week. You're watching. You're seeing things that work on film and incorporating them into your playbook and doing things. And it's always a constant learning experience with coaches, no matter what age you are.
I wouldn't be concerned about the modern NFL thing with Belichick. I'm concerned just because I feel this way with our presidential candidates too. Like when you get to a certain age, you gotta, find a rocking chair. Maybe I'll probably feel differently when I'm 70, 75.
Yes, you will.
But I do.
I'm not that old, but I'm saying you will
when
feel
you're
that way as you get older.
If you're in a very, if you're in a situation where you can do a little bit less with your job or you can hand it off to somebody else and keep doing it, sure, of course. I wouldn't say you need to absolutely retire and do nothing the rest of your life. But being an NFL head coach is very, very demanding. And I
it is.
Don't know if 75-year-old versus 65-year-old Belichick versus 55-year-old Belichick, not that he won't have the same drive. I think the drive's there, but just the energy, how he deals with stress and such. I think at a certain age, it does matter. What that age is, I don't know. Clearly, I think he's still fine at 72, but he's not going to be coaching for 10 years. Definitely not.
No, he's not. But, right now he's got 302 wins regular season. So he's third on the all-time regular season list.
Yeah.
31 playoff wins.
Right.
Well, George Halas only has 6 playoff wins because there wasn't a postseason when George Halas coached.
Yep.
If you won your division, you went to the postseason. You played in the NFL championship game.
Right. And, Halas had fewer games coached because did they play 12 games back then? Did they play 10 games?
12. He also coached in the 14-game season for a few years.
14 games. Okay.
He's won. I think he won NFL championships, not in each decade because they didn't win in the 50s, but he won in the 30s, 40s, and 60s. So 1964 or 63, he was the coach of the winning NFL champion Bears.
Yeah.
So, but as I say, there weren't any playoff games then.
Right.
Unless you tied for your division lead, then you played a playoff game to go on to the NFL championship.
But that wouldn't even be my argument for why we shouldn't count postseason wins, because we count all regular season wins, and he only had 12, 14, and Belichick now has had 16, 17. We don't count postseason statistics for any other record.
No, we don't.
We don't include Brady's touchdown passes and his in the playoffs to his total. I think he's still number one in the regular season, so he doesn't need it. But
right.
We don't count any other statistic, rushing yards, nothing. Nothing is included in the all-time lists for statistics for players. Why is coaches any different? I don't know why we've moved the goalposts on this the last couple of years, but they definitely have. ESPN and the top media people definitely, consider Belichick second in wins. And I agree with you. It shouldn't be that way, but
no, it's wrong.
I think Carolina, if I had to guess right now, the teams in the NFC South interested in Belichick, I would say Carolina. I think maybe Tampa Bay, but I don't
possible Tampa Bay.
And I
if Bowles doesn't, if they don't win and get into the playoffs as division leaders, then I think maybe Bowles is sitting on a hot seat only if another coach comes available that is a proven winner.
They won.
Has a proven track record.
Right. And the reason also why I say Tampa Bay is they win for Brady. So like they were okay with a quarterback that was only going to play for a few seasons. I think they'll also be okay bringing in a high profile coach that is only going to coach for a few seasons, but has the pedigree of all of the Super Bowl wins that Belichick has had. And wouldn't that be crazy if Brady ends his career in Tampa Bay and Belichick ends his career in Tampa Bay? Of course, not together.
Yeah,
that would be insane if that
would
happened.
be wild.
And I think Carolina is obvious just because they have so many have had so many coaching issues and probably are going to throw a bunch of money at some head coach this offseason and bring in somebody they think is going to fix this issue. And I don't know if Belichick would be interested at all in that mess in Carolina, but I think they're interested in him.
It's a bad draft situation. And you don't know if Bryce Young was a question mark coming out of college. Tons of talent, but could he make the transition to the pro game? He's done okay this season. Maybe he does better with a better coach because he's had coaching. There's been turmoil in the coaching ranks. I know Frank Reich was expected to be able to develop him.
Yeah.
And really did not work out that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. If I think Carolina is going to be looking for somebody who could be more of a developmental partner for Bryce Young and move forward and be willing to come there, considering as I said, the draft situation. Because they don't have a number one pick this year. It went to the Bears.
And you have a crazy owner there who clearly does not have any patience at all.
No, it's terrible. It's a bad situation.
That's why I don't think Belichick is interested in that situation.
No, neither do I.
They're going to end up hiring some – I don't know if they're going to hire the best coordinator because I think if coordinators were smart, they wouldn't want to go there. But they're going to offer somebody some really big money, and somebody's going to take them up on it. And,
yes.
And, just accept the big payday.
Yeah, somebody will.
Yeah. Just
to jump into the head coaching ranks.
Right.
Even though it's a terrible organization.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're out of time, but could you give us your picks against the spread real quick?
Yeah, I can give you some picks real quick.
Today's show, by the way, brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. When you do, use our promo code ASU. Get you 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money. Got kickoff, Steelers-Ravens in 3.5 hours. So you got some time before that game, but you could also use it for the night game, Texans-Colts, and all day tomorrow. And as Tom always says, all the other sports that you can really think of. They've got everything in there. Yep, and when you get started, use our promo code ASU.
Absolutely. Plenty of opportunities. As far as picks against the spread this week, I'm taking Detroit -3.5. I think Detroit wants to go into the playoffs at a high point. I think they're pissed off about last week. Yeah. I think Dan Campbell's going to take it out on the Vikings. And the Vikings just don't have a quarterback.
Right.
They don't have anybody who can play.
They tried everybody.
They really have. They've tried everybody, and it's just not there. So I'm taking Detroit just because, that's what they do. I'm actually taking the Bears +3. The Bears are a different team than they were the last time they faced the Packers, first game of the season.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
So I'm thinking the Bears +3. And, been going through and trying to look and find another one more pick to really give everybody. And the problem with picking in week 18 is finding teams that are still motivated. I think the Cleveland Browns are being given, are 7.5-point favorites. I think they beat the Bengals. Sorry, Chris, but I think the Browns try to beat the Bengals and go into the playoffs strong.
Now, it's one thing to tell me that, the Bengals are going to lose, Tom, but it's another thing to pick the other Ohio team. I mean, come on now. You know,
I know,
when I heard that,
I
I said
know.
I gotta come off. I said, Tom, we're wrapping up the show, man. We were doing so well, but you know, it's okay. I'll text you. I'll text you after the game.
Okay. Sounds good.
I like those picks. I think you found you're right. Week 18 can be tough. So it's I think a lot of teams are going to be motivated to play, but you still are not sure what you're getting from backups and such. So in certain situations,
Right.
if I had to, I'm going to make one pick, Tom, and then we'll wrap up here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys over the Commanders. I know that's a huge spread. ESPN has it at 13.5. Is it still at 13.5?
It is at 13.
13. Cowboys need it to go into to win the East. They need it to make sure that they don't go on the road against Detroit, which I think would be a disaster if somehow they could win. They could lose this game and the Eagles lose again, which seems to be happening for Philadelphia. And if Detroit wins, you got Detroit 2, Dallas 3, Philly 5. If all of them advance, you got Detroit and Dallas in Detroit rather than where it's probably going to be in Dallas if Dallas wins this game and both Dallas and Detroit advance on Wild Card Weekend. So I think they got to win the division, of course, but they also do not want to go into Ford Field and face all of the, hoopla that would be in Detroit after what happened last week. So it's paramount Dallas wins tomorrow, and I think they'll get it done against a really bad Commanders team. They'll win by 2 touchdowns.
And a Commanders team that's really, everybody knows Rivera's gone and there's going to be changes made there.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where players play hard because they got to have good film. But a lot of internal motivation to maybe, give that little extra that makes a play isn't necessarily there when you know that you've got the cars warming up in the parking lot, golf bags are loaded, and you're ready to take the summer.
It's human it's human nature. It's just it seeps in for these teams, and if you were eliminated like last week, it's one thing. Okay, just gonna go out, give it my all for one more week. Commanders have been done for a while.
Yes, they have.
So that's a tough situation.
Yeah, it is. So I think there isn't much they can look to play for in that game. They're 0-7 against teams that are currently over 500. So, they're not going to beat the Cowboys. And I think the Cowboys, even though it's in Washington, even though Dallas is a bad road team, I think they're capable of doing it. Let's take the Cleveland game off my recommended picks.
Oh, I convinced you.
No, because I don't want to hurt Chris. Yeah.
Oh.
It's been a rough Bengals season. I'd say take the Buffalo Bills -3 favored against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Miami just keeps getting their butts kicked against playoff teams. They keep getting they just get punched in the mouth and they can't come back. Baltimore killed them last week.
Well, Baltimore killed San Francisco too.
Yeah, but you're looking at Miami. Miami is supposed to be a better team. San Francisco has also beaten some playoff teams.
They have, yes, they have. My point just is Baltimore is, I think they're on a whole nother level right now.
So do I.
With
I
everybody.
think they're definitely, they're number one in my power rankings.
Yeah, obviously. I think that's clearly they're number one on any power ranking right now. And that won't change based on what happens in week 18 with their backups playing. They've proven it week in and week out this year that they're the best team in the league.
Yeah. By the way, Frisco got blown out by Baltimore, but they're 5-2 against teams that are over 500. They play competitive against winners.
Well, yeah,
And doesn't.
I didn't mean that as a knock against San
Oh,
Francisco.
I know.
I think they're going to probably win the NFC, but they got to get a lot better between now and February if they're going to beat Baltimore.
Ron Winarski, like that. That's fantastic.
Well,
I'm with you there.
Thanks everybody for tuning in today and staying with us for a little bit past 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the Central Time Zone. We enjoy doing the show. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that the Falcons get some help from the Panthers, who spoiled the Falcons season a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Can completely change the narrative and save the Falcons season by beating the Buccaneers, and if the Falcons take care of business against the Saints, and we can talk about a playoff game next weekend. That would be awesome.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I would love that. It's not fun talking about the playoffs. We don't have the Falcons involved. So it'd be great to have them in there. But appreciate you staying with us. A lot of great comments. Everybody did a fantastic job in the comments. So, and that's kind of kept us going through this last hour. So we appreciate that. We appreciate all of you staying with us during your Saturday for an hour, and have a great week. Playoffs next week.